We've reached the end. We've reached the final event. I'd like to already send, many of us can be successful in one field. We have the pleasure of introducing Dr. Ming Zeng, who has been successful in two fields. Not only is he now the current strategy officer at Alibaba. I don't know how many of you have heard of Alibaba? You know about the $20 billion IPO? You're not supposed to ask about that, right? You're not supposed to ask about that. So you can ask any number of questions, particularly on the talk for this afternoon, but not about the IPO afterwards. You might not know that he was previously president of China Yahoo before this, so he's had extraordinary success both in industry. But many of you may not realize that he's also had considerable success in academia. Before this, he had been 4 years faculty at INSEAD. He'd published in HBR, Org Science, Academy Management Review, AMR, California Management Review, and Sloan Management Review. Even had a popularly selling book, Dragons at Your Door, about international business and the expansion from the Chinese markets. He has a PhD in international business and strategy from Illinois Urbana-Champaign and undergraduate degree in economics from Fudan. Really quite an extraordinarily accomplished career both in industry and in academia. So with that, let me introduce Dr. Ming Zeng. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. It's an honor to be here, and also very stimulating to listen to so many exciting speakers before. So what I would do is just offer some learnings over the years in building many platforms. Okay, fortunately, Alibaba Group have successfully built not only Taobao, Alibaba.com, but also Alipay and Alibaba Cloud Computing, and trying a few other platforms. So, so we have learned a lot of lessons on the way. So the first thing I want to confess is I have a very mixed feeling toward the term platform itself. On one hand, this is a fancy term that really catches the essence of our business. But on the other hand, we haven't seen any single platform that is built with this in mind. Platform evolves. It was not designed. Okay, so that's the first point I want to make, because we had some spectacular failures on the way because we were trying to build platforms. And the best example is one business unit we once had, which was set up in 2008. We called AliSoft, okay? And that's when Salesforce.com was becoming quite popular. And also Taobao became a quite successful platform. So we set out to build a platform for a SaaS IT service for all the small companies in China, okay? Because there's no good IT service for SMEs in China. But we build all the platform infrastructures, we invite all these developers, but in the end, the business didn't work. We have to close the business, the BU, in 2 years' time. Now, the fundamental flaw with that particular initiative is we couldn't offer customer value. We don't have enough customers in the end. We tried many different products, none of them clicked. So there's no killer app, so to speak, for the whole ecosystem to attract enough users. So all these developers we invite can have economic gains to keep going. Okay, so the important lesson we learned is most of successful platforms evolve from a very strong product that has profound customer value and big market potential. That's how platform got evolved over time, okay? So at one time, we get so paranoid in the company, we even banned the concept, we even banned the talk of platform in our strategy meetings, etc. Okay, so now, but this is one side. But on the other hand, the platform, the successful platforms we have seen so far usually start with a conviction or even a belief about future, okay? Like the Burp example we heard this morning, and Alibaba started a vision that doing business easier for everyone by leveraging the technology of internet. So most platforms in the original stage actually have a strong belief and a very powerful customer value propositions, although this takes a long time to develop. So the second point I want to make is for platform to work, you really have to believe in your belief, because it will take a long, long time for you to get all these nice things about platform, network effect, all this critical mass. Before you see that, you will be dead many, many times. So be patient, okay? Our rule of thumb is it takes 3 years for a platform to have a shape, okay? A very initial idea, what it might look like. Takes 5 years to maybe get it gain track, and maybe take 8 years for it to reach a critical mass that everybody is hoping for, especially if you are aiming at a big platform. So you really have to have the belief for the future, because you have to convince so many people to believe in your future, to invest with you together. And this process is very time-consuming, and it's actually a trust business, okay? So you have to build your record step by step. And let me give you another example. Logistics service, okay? Taobao produced about 12 million parcels per day last year, okay? So there's no way we can run our own logistic operations to deliver so many parcels, because we would have been a company with more than 1 million employees just to run the distribution centers and the delivery service. So we know from the beginning it has to be an open platform. But the troubles or the challenges we run into is with the basic service of delivery and distribution, the infrastructure have been so poor in China. Now, compared to Amazon, for example, okay, when they started, UPS, FedEx have been very successful, okay? They have been very good infrastructure service in logistics all over US. And then you have Walmart, who have been working on this for many years. So you can easily build a team by hiring from Walmart and UPS, and by leveraging third-party service providers to jumpstart your process, to jumpstart your business. But in China, the first question I asked myself when we were thinking about our logistic platform is, can you ever build a four-party logistics service when there have been no third-party service providers to begin with? Okay. So the difficulty is you have to sell your vision, you have to sell your service, and to the end user when there are no parties, no partners to speak of in the beginning. So you have to convince people to become your partners as well, okay? So we have been working with a lot of startups who are not really strong enough in themselves, and our service level is always below the expectation of our customers. So you can imagine our life had not been easy for the last 4 years, okay? And but there's nothing else you can do. You just have to keep trying until the experience curve start to take off, until you start to build critical mass, until you start to have certain network effect. Because now we have distribution centers across China, and there's a network effect, so you can have our power sellers can have their product put in different centers before their sales promotion started, for example. Okay, so the second point I want to emphasize is if you believe in your platform business, be patient and find a good VC who can bear with your big money losing for many, many years. Okay, yeah. Now the third point I want to mention is paradoxically, sometime in your life, you have to realize you are a platform, and you have to shift the way you are doing business. And this has been very difficult for Taobao, one of the largest online shopping sites globally. We are actually larger than Amazon and eBay combined. And this year, I think we will sell more product than all the US together, okay, roughly, yeah. Now, I remember the old good days, we are just focusing on selling product, okay? But somehow the magical word platform entered our mindset around 2007, and our life became quite miserable since then, okay? Now the challenge is we don't even know what are our boundaries, okay? What are we supposed to do, and what are the things we should not do, okay? What kind of incentives? Who have a right to make all these rules? Okay, we are not a god, okay? How can you decide which party to favor, okay? And how do you manage an ecosystem in a more biological sense rather than industrial sense? Okay, most of us are trained in an industrial age. No matter how complicated the system is, it was well defined and well planned, so complication is actually easy to manage. But now we are talking more about social and biological ecosystem that takes its own life beyond your control. So what can you do? That has become very difficult. And I remember talking to our managers that we have to shift our role from running retailing business to running a platform, to become enablers of all the species who live on this platform. They all look at me impaired. They don't understand what I'm talking about, okay? So because initially all their training is, okay, I have to do 4 promotions each year for my vertical business, okay? I know who are the best-selling products in my industry. That's what they know. But then when we start talk to them about API, about data exchange, about the rules of engagement, they start to get lost. So we almost have to hire a different group of people who have more technology background to start groove them into this thinking about platform, infrastructure, enabling, and this new skill set that really build the foundation for the platform. So shifting your focus from running business, running a tangible business that is easy to understand, to an intangible virtual ecosystem is a true challenge. And the whole organization has to change in mindset, in culture, in organization, in core competencies. Okay, that's a self-lifting upgrading you have to do in the future. But even when you are doing this, you still should not lose the focus on customer, because an ecosystem only prosper when they as a whole deliver better customer value than existing ecosystems. And despite our size, we are still a challenger to traditional retailers who are very efficient. So the ecosystem as a whole have to perform better than the existing standards, and that takes a lot of effort. Now, the third thing I want to emphasize is platforms and the applications, okay? That's the nightmare I have been, the most difficult part I have in running our business, okay? So whenever we have internal, whenever I have managers coming to me asking me how can I manage the tension between verticals and platforms, I congratulate him on finally get a grasp about our core business, okay? Now the challenge, the difficulty is, I actually have a senior leader who is running our new digital, new data platform, okay? He was transferred to this position for about a year now. And he came to me 2 weeks ago saying, now I understand the biggest trouble for a platform owner is people simply ignore you. They don't think you, they treat you as you are not even existing. That's even worse than people fighting against you all the time. Because the most difficult part in evolving a platform is, as I mentioned in the beginning, there's no such thing called platform per se. There's only the service delivered to the end user. So platform has to deliver through the vertical applications, which again needs a lot of support from third-party service providers, because platform can only do basic infrastructure service. We don't offer solutions. So you need third-party partners to help deliver vertical application solutions. And coordinating this complicated interaction is extremely challenging, okay? So I always tell the platform managers, you have to be able to live at least as outsourced service providers to earn your right to speak, okay? So you have to be able to work with the vertical business owners, telling them, I'm trustworthy, you can build on my platform, everything you need I will deliver the moment you ask, although they are always months later, okay? So because it's impossible to deliver because you have to think across verticals. That's your job. You have to think about future possibility for expansion across verticals. But without one vertical application that acts as your anchor, there's no way you can grow. Nobody will use your service at all. There's no room for you to try out your service. You are dead from day one. So for platform business managers, you cannot think in abstract terms. You can never design a beautiful architecture that will offer this wonderful platform service. It never exists, okay? You can only evolve together with your client who have very demanding daily operational challenges to deliver, both to customers, but to their business KPIs. Okay, they don't care whether you are a platform at all. They just want their solution ready the moment they want it. So I always tell them, it's your job to be able to deliver and satisfy your client in the vertical need, but to kind of embed your platform architecture from day one. Okay, and then you work together through try and error to evolve both your vertical business and your platform infrastructure. Okay, both have to go hand in hand, because if the vertical application doesn't win in the marketplace, the platform will not be able to roll out to other adopters. Okay, so managing the simultaneous evolution of vertical application and platform infrastructure is the most difficult part for a platform. And there's no easy way, no easy answer. Don't ask me for the pedicures. You have to live through it, okay? It's a muddling through process. You always adjust the balance. There's no right or wrong. You just have to keep going. Sometimes you put too much emphasis on platform, which sacrifice the flexibility and the speediness of business response. Sometimes you bend too much toward the vertical business need, and you have to do your platform revamp every other 6 months, which will keep your engineers sleepless for 2 months, okay? And you can only do that twice a year at most, okay? So that's another thing. And that's why there's one thing we did find out useful. Once in a while, we switch the two leaders, okay? We switch the business leader for the platform and the business leader for the vertical applications. But to do that, you have to have both guys trained very well in architecture and application. And these kind of people are harder to come by anyway to start with. So it's almost impossible. You have just to train them in both directions. And finally, if you are lucky, you have 1 or 2 people who understand the tension and the balance in a more pragmatic ways. Okay? So that's the third thing I want to mention. And the fourth thing I want to talk about, I want to switch to the main theme that has been repeated many times today, that is open platform wins. Only in theory. Okay? Now, openness we now treat as philosophical. Okay? You have to be open in a philosophical way. Openness is a core competence you have to build in a very difficult way. Okay? If you come to this world in a very naive way to open up, you will be dead in 1 minute. Okay? Now, the difficult thing is it's not the openness per se, it's the value you provide to the ecosystem that attract partners to this platform. Okay? So you have to work out the solutions that is meaningful and provide value for the partners. Okay? So for example, we have been trying to build a data exchange platform because we have tons of data, okay? And we are #1 advertising platform in China. So we know data business. And we thought about this fancy idea to build a data sharing platform. We tried for 2 years without any single customer because nobody have figured out a way to price data and to transact them in an open market. Okay, that's not the right way to do it. We learned finally, that's not the right way to do it. We actually have to build a cloud service first that leverage the power of big data, and then that serves as a magnet to attract all the data coming to you. In other words, it's just like AdSense and AdWords of Google. Everybody give their data voluntarily to Google P4P platform in return for better monetization than they can do on their own. Okay? So you have to have all this big computing power. You have to have a lot of data. You have to be able to run models that yield more return than each individual owner of the data itself. And that takes it takes a genius to figure out that kind of application, okay? So we are still trying. We haven't found it yet, but we know all the wrong paths we have been through. We haven't found the right path. So the point I want to make about this openness is, in your mindset, yes, you should be open all the time, but you have to keep in mind openness is a capability you have to build. Until you have that kind of capability, you are not able to open. The second point I want to mention, no matter how open you are, there's always a boundary to your ecosystem. Okay? The wider you go, the more difficult it is to manage, and its value may become too thin to support you as the platform owner. Okay, so there's always issue of platform, boundaries. Okay, and the most difficult question about boundary is what should you do yourself, and what should you leave to third-party service providers. Okay, this we can build on now very popular frameworks of disruptive innovation. To a certain degree, you have to integrate in the beginning, because otherwise the coordination cost is way too high to deliver even minimum level of robustness in your service. But how can you disintegrate this interface gradually over time so the third party can prosper and evolve into many different species, so the ecosystem become more prosper? That's a very difficult know-how you have to develop over time by trial and error again. Okay. Now another difficult part is if you do it yourself in the beginning, even with a good intention to open it up later, most partners may not trust you anymore. Most partners will not believe you will open up later. So they may not even join your game. Okay? So, but if you choose to leave it open from day one to third parties, the difficulty will be tremendous in getting all these related parties together to deliver a single integrated service to end customers. That's the challenge we are facing with our logistics service, as I mentioned, because we insist on not doing any part of the value chain by ourselves. So we often are working with at least 5 or 6 different partners that are all very weak and are all competing against each other because they all want to have a bigger pie in the whole ecosystem. So it's tremendously difficult to engage them on a certain path toward a very vague direction people philosophically agree with. So if you choose a more stubborn approach toward openness, you have to pay a much bigger price in the beginning. And the takeoff may be slower than you thought. But if you take a more or less iPhone's approach to jumpstart in the beginning, it may not be easy to open it up in the later as well. Okay, so that's some of the key points I want to share with you. And because I don't know how much you know about Alibaba, etc., I would rather leave more time for questions and answers. Okay. Any questions? Yeah. Okay, thank you. Thank you. There's one in the back. Yeah.
Several months ago, Alibaba actually bought a Chinese football team. And several days ago, we heard the news that Alibaba actually started a filmmaking business in China. So I'm wondering whether you would be able to share, if it is not illegal, to share a little bit about the logic behind such acquisitions.
We are actually also in the game business now. Now, the fundamental issue here is, let me frame it in our terminology today. When can a vertical become a platform? As a successful platform on e-commerce, we are extremely cautious in watching verticals that are so big that sooner or later they will become a platform. Now, one clear example is digital product. Now we see all these big numbers, gaming, entertainment, music, are growing extremely fast over the last few years in China. And we are sure when you have a business that is so big, it will have its own ecosystem and it will become a platform in its own. So we are trying to leverage our established infrastructure, such as payment, and trying to win in these verticals as a defensive move. So nobody can come in and compete against us on platforms in the future. Okay, so the acquisition and the investment, the focus is on digital product that is probably going to be as big as physical product that Taobao is handling now.
I'm going to sneak one in while Dave is moving the mic around. So you said something fascinating about the types of people you need to make these systems work. You said, quote, you almost have to hire a different group of people when you start working with platform and infrastructure and shift the focus from running a vertical. And maybe you could just say a little bit more about what you think those skills are and difference in viewpoints that make them successful.
Okay. For example, Taobao starts as an e-commerce website. So our initial employees and managers become quite strong in managing categories, April, consumer, computer product, etc. And they are also very strong in online promotion. Okay, where should they put their campaign, advertising campaign, etc. And but they tend not to be that strong in understand the fundamentals of internet, what it means, and big data, cloud computing, platform, etc. So later on, we have to hire more people who has technology background, who has an intrinsic understanding. For example, if you have done coding, at least you know open source, right? So you can have a rough feeling about what it means to be an open platform. So we are looking for this type of person. Then we teach them the business part of it. So they start to understand, okay, no matter what kind of platform you build, you have to be able to make shopping easier and more efficient for the end users. That's the ultimate goal. Okay. Before we get to that question, there's an important I want to make about openness. Okay. There's no openness between two competing platforms. Let's be clear on that. Okay. If you happen to have competitors in a platform battle, cut the linkage between your competing platforms as much as possible. That's the war between two countries, okay? You have to be clear because you are fighting for the standards for the future. Let me give you an example. One of the most difficult decisions we have to make is back in 2006. We were small, okay? And Baidu, as the search engine in China, was quite strong, but not dominant yet, okay? And 15% of our traffic come from Baidu. We made the decision that we are not opening our product to Baidu's cloud. So Baidu cannot search our product list. In retrospect, this is the most important decision we ever made. And now we can say we are the shopping destination in China. People even go to Taobao for vertical search, for product information, etc. Few people go to Baidu to search for product or shopping. So unlike the case in the US, people still do most of shopping on Google, shopping search on Google. Few people do shopping search in Baidu. That's why our valuation is much higher than Baidu now, because shopping search is the most valuable part of the search. We have all the commercial value of vertical shopping search because from very early on, we cut Baidu's link access to our data, okay? Because we want to make sure we are the ecosystem that provide the best service for consumers on shopping. Okay.
Yeah, so my question is a little bit of a follow-up to what you have mentioned, and it's internet and technology. And the part of the internet that serves as a communication media with people. Lately, there has been messaging or chat applications that have been very successful. I'm talking particularly in China. I'm talking about Weibo and WeChat. And while they started being pure communication services, right, messaging, chat, they are expanding into e-commerce. So they are getting a little bit into your field or Alibaba's turf. And I was wondering if you have a comment, if you see them as complementing you, competing with you, or totally orthogonal to you. Thank you.
That's the boundary defining moment, okay, for this major platform in China. The answer is not clear. And we try very hard to expand the boundary of our platform. To answer it in a short way, Mr. John Hagel this morning mentioned about the evolution of platforms. And we have a similar terminology. First internet product is portal, marketplace. The second internet product is search. The third internet product is SNS. These are general product type that will be building blocks of any business for the future, okay? So Alibaba did a successful job in transforming ourselves from a marketplace to search. We are in the third stage to leverage SNS mechanism for the purpose of e-commerce. And hopefully, we will be successful again in this round. Now, of course, you can also come into commerce through a communication network. And it will definitely win in certain categories and for certain type of shopping behaviors. But it will be very difficult to win for marketplace type of shopping behaviors because you have to have a matching capability of big number of buyers and big number of sellers. And that's the true essence of an e-commerce platform. Okay. Well, yeah. Okay.
Hi, you've done a fantastic job, so thank you very much. I think we've seen a lot of precedent, particularly over the past number of decades, about linear business monopolies. My overarching question here is, do you think that platform monopolies are quote unquote less evil than linear monopolies. I can provide more context if you'd like, or you can just run with that.
It's a great question that I've been exploring for the last 4 years, and actually have been looking for academic help in this area, because I think it's an open question. We should not rush to conclusion too quickly. Now, at least I can see differences in platform monopoly, if you call it. I don't even like the term. Okay, platform by nature is more or less because of economy scale and the scope. So now the fundamental difference of our platform versus industrial monopoly is the co-evolution part, or the symbiotic coexistence between all the parties is much more essential to this new phenomena. And I don't think you can curve out something called platform from the ecosystem itself. So I do believe the society need to come up with a new way to dealing with these new business phenomena, but definitely not the antitrust policy of the industrial age paradigm. So that's the open question for everybody. Yeah, okay.
Well, Dr. Zeng, one moment. Actually, I want to thank you. That was incredible. Really deep insight. We really do want to thank you. It's a small token of our thanks for your incredible insights. Thank you very much. So, let me just give you. Yeah, David is getting us all off the stage here. There were one or two, just want to leave you with one or two parting thoughts on here. One thing I just wanted to show was that in some cases, Jeff had opened with several questions and several observations. Over the course of the next several months, we're going to try to distill a lot of those same kinds of observations and really do want to get your thoughts on the things that you're observing, as we can actually distill the principles of this, and indeed some of the wisdom and insights of folks such as Dr. Zeng, and put those into the book. So we really are going to try to get those into the book and what the reasoning behind that is. Also, just for those of you that have seen some of the slides in the past, it's fascinating that if you look at the market capitalizations of the world's most successful firms, 3 of them now are platform firms, Exxon and Berkshire Hathaway being joined by the likes of Apple, Google, and Microsoft. And indeed, this is a trend that's been continuing for more than a decade. Indeed, if you look at it, it goes back even almost 20 years, how much that's actually happening. So things really are changing. We think that there are some substantial shifts taking place in the economy as a whole. And with that, I really would like to thank, we make a comment earlier that products have features, platforms have communities. And in some sense, you are our community, and we're really glad that you're here to join us today. So for that, I really would like to thank you. And would encourage you to stay engaged over time. I want to thank our sponsors also, Institute for Digital Economy, the Center for Digital Business, International Postal Corporation, Thomson Reuters, and Boston University. Indeed, I'd like to acknowledge also Dave Verrill, Justin Lockenwitz, Tammy Buzel, who have been marvelous in making sure the trains run on time. So with that, I really would like to thank the support for the folks who have been with us.